So, FF14 Evercold just got announced, and well, dang, it looks really, really good. So, we won't know the full scope of everything until the expansion kicks off, or at least until patch 7.5 drops tomorrow. But it looks like the holiday is officially over, and we're going into winter. I hope you got your coat ready. I talked a bit in my 7.5 trailer reaction about Halmerut's references to the solstice and what that might mean going forward. Link here if you're interested. And with the announcement of the Godless Realms saga as the formal title of our post-Endwalker era, I have more thoughts that I'd like to share here. So, welcome. I'm Lorika Leray, PhD in the study of religions and general miscreant gamer who loves Final Fantasy, narrative themes, and world building. A lot of people have already commented on the Nordic and Celtic-esque themes of not just the trailer, but the limited information we received in the forms of concept art and screenshots. These cat dwarves are my personal favourites, but we also see these dragon, or, to me, serpent iconography that has a distinct Celtic quality to it. The fabric work in the trailer, as well as the general image of frost, also fits a lot of conceptual imagery we associate with Nordic nations, much in the same way that the architecture of Charlayan evokes the popular conception of ancient Greece, not to be confused with how ancient Greece actually looked. But in this context, there's a few things I kind of want to touch on. The first is the expansion title itself, Evercold. Given the Nordic context, this evokes the general conception of the Fimblewinter. The Fimblewinter is a concept from Norse eschatology, that discourses about the end of the world, in which everything is consumed by a great winter that lasts for 3 successive years. This is the event that immediately precedes Ragnarok, the final war and the destruction of the gods, as well as acting as the final test of humanity. The last 2 humans find refuge in one of the forests and only emerge in the wake of Ragnarok itself to repopulate the new world. The term Fimblewinter, which literally translates as Great Winter, has become a cultural idiom in the centuries since. As an aside, there's a really interesting body of scholarship on how the Fimblewinter may have been directly inspired by the cultural memory of a volcanic winter from 536 CE, in which a dust veil led to an extended period of solar darkness. This would make it what is sometimes referred to as a geomythology, that is, mythology inspired by specific geological and climatological incidents, and I just think that's really neat. It has no bearing on Final Fantasy. Given what we see and know about the 4th, at least from the initial trailer, this Fimblewinter has lasted significantly longer than 3 successive years. We hear about how the people who once populated the surface of the 4th Shard have retreated to sanctuaries in the skies, while the world below is roamed by arcane colossi, whose march coincided with the onset of the cold. Whether the name is used here, I think it's fair to draw a parallel between these colossi and the frost giants of Norse mythology, who are known there as the Hrimthursar, but are often depicted in popular culture simply as the Jotun, or to use the plural, the Jotnar. Giants in Norse mythology have a relatively complex role, and exactly what they represent is something that is debated. Several of the gods, for example, are descended from giants, and also have descendants with giants in turn. This has led a lot of people to hypothesize that the giants are simply representatives of humans of different ethnic or cultural backgrounds. In other situations, however, the giants take on a much more symbolic role as overwhelming antagonistic forces tied to their more elemental qualities. For this reason, they are sometimes read as representatives of the hostile forces of nature. If these arcane colossi are, at least conceptually, frost giants, I think it's fair to say that the latter interpretation fits the best for now. Their prominence is tied to the onset of the, Evercold, placing them as representatives of its more adverse effects. They are a physical embodiment of the overwhelming power of nature's elements, and specifically its ice ether. Speaking of which, taken in purely Final Fantasy XIV terms, these arcane colossi might be similar to the Sin Eaters or the Void Sent. That is to say, they may be created from an intense elemental imbalance of ice ether, although that kind of remains to be seen, and I'm sure it's something we'll find out when Evercold drops. Another figure the trailer features is this rather dashing, albeit somewhat haggard, Aura gentleman. I've seen a lot of people speculate that this individual may be tied to Odin, And that seems plausible on at least a symbolic level, at least to me. The man has one eye, which in mythological depictions is one of Odin's more prominent features. I've seen some speculation that his single eye is also similar to the eyes of the ancients, and I can definitely see that, although given the state of the fourth, I think it's possible his eye is more representative of the abundance of ice ether. However, this remains to be seen. In the trailer, this man looks like he is a man in mourning, presumably for the praying Aura girl whose body shatters before him, and whose likeness is depicted in the expansion logo. I feel that this depiction potentially ties into one of the other core elements of Odin within the mythological corpus, which is his awareness of the future. Odin as a mythological figure is one that is saddled with the inevitable knowledge of the coming Ragnarok, and with it his own death and the deaths of the other gods. This is, critically, a fate he is completely unable to change. If this character is Odin, or at least is inspired by Odin, we potentially here have a character who foresaw or has foreseen the present and future of the fourth shard, but who is also unable to change this fate. This possibly ties into his vision of the death of the logo character. Her death could be an event that either has already happened, or is potentially going to happen, but which cannot be avoided. If the latter, I suspect this will be a critical event that we as the Warrior of Light play a part in. Another critical aspect worth noting here is the identity of the mysterious Wanderer in the trailer. While it's possible that this figure is us, the Warrior of Light, Asm, or another familiar figure, one of the common identities assumed by Odin within folklore is specifically as a mysterious wanderer. This ties into his foreknowledge of events. Odin was often depicted as wandering the earth in order to pursue knowledge and wisdom, sometimes specifically in his quest to, albeit vainly, find a way to avert Ragnarok. Could this man, in fact, be the Wanderer mentioned in the trailer? If he is, what could his connection to the Warrior of Light be? And to Asm? Could he be a shard, an unrelated actor, or something completely different? The last element I really want to touch on here is this particular depiction of a tree, which is potentially linked to the concept of the world tree. In Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is the tree that links all of the 9 worlds, from the realms of the gods to those of the giants, humans, dwarves, and the dead. The concept of world trees is an element that has been present but under-examined in Final Fantasy XIV at the moment. For example, during the Warring Triad questline in Heavenswood, we learn about a world tree that is ostensibly located in Mericidia. And in the final zone of living memory, an NPC also name-drops the Aoife tree from Final Fantasy IX, which at least takes the form of a world tree. It's worth noting here that Final Fantasy XIV actually already has a representative of FF9's Aoife tree. In 9, the tree connects the 2 worlds of that title, Gaia and Terra, but in a fairly hostile way. The tree originates from Terra as part of its failed attempt to merge with Gaia, and while it was initially after this used to stabilize and reconstruct Gaia in the wake of this attempt, it was also used by the antagonist Garland as a means of preventing Gaian souls from reintegrating with the planet. In Final Fantasy XIV, this takes the form of Everkeep, a tree-like tower transplanted from one world to another, whose purpose is to artificially regulate the flow of souls. Shout out to Cleretic for this observation, by the way. Check out her channel, link in the description. Since we know, as per Yoshi P, that Mericidia is coming at some point in the future, and given the symbolic presence of the Aoife tree already with Everkeep, it seems plausible to me that this concept of the world tree as a bridge between shards is going to possibly play a much larger role going forward, perhaps as a means of preventing what Helmarut called the Withering, and I'm sure we'll find out more about that tomorrow. In general though, these are the features from the trailer that really stood out to me. I'm really excited for Evercold, and also for patch 7.5 and whatever it's going to bring. I think it's going to be a really interesting time over the next 9 months, and also beyond that for Final Fantasy XIV. And I have a lot of ideas cooking for thematic and narrative analysis videos that I really want to do for this channel. I'm planning on leaning a lot more into my actual real-world expertise in religions, philosophy, and culture in order to kind of create more, I think, in-depth analyses that touch on what I can bring, rather than what others have already brought. Either way, I hope you have a really good day, and I hope you're having a really good time waiting for patch 7.5. This has been the Ritual Array, signing off.
Did I go and burst the bubble? Promise more than I can give. I tried to touch its cosmic sheen, but today all I smell is chlorine.